MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey!
Does it add any pressure to the Niners that they've won 6 in a row? Or does that only add pressure to the Rams? Like, is there any pressure on the 49ers in this game? Or is all of the pressure on the Rams? Because I do think when you are in the game, there is just a fundamental amount of pressure on you. You are just playing in this game. When you run through the tunnel, when you line up for the first play of the game, you're just going to have butterflies and wherever it comes from, self-imposed, external, the crowd, the media, but it's just a big-ass moment. There's going to be pressure on you.
We were talking about this before we jumped on, and, you know, they've been saying this before you and I were born, and they'll be saying it after we're dead. An underdog, you're a big underdog in this game, and it is relative to the gambling line, right? When you hear it during the season, right, like the Miami Dolphins are a 17-point underdog against Brady and Belichick. That's real. But wouldn't you say the average NFL game, if it's just like the 2-3 point line, we don't talk that much like they're a big underdog. It's just a game, you know? And during the regular season, road team, home team, you see it all the time, right? For example, like the Jags against the Colts, that final game when they were, like a 14-point underdog, we had been talking, that was a huge upset for a reason. But the average, like, you know, the average game, like week 7 of just two teams, like Colts versus the Niners, this is like, are the Colts a huge underdog? It's just a fucking game, right?
Right.
I do think in the playoffs, and it goes back to what Troy Aikman said, I think it gets to when you're hosting playoff games, even the lines being smaller, a 2-point line, a 3-point line, is like, you should win at home. I think it feels dramatically different. And the Niners, these last 2 weeks, just beat teams on the road as underdogs, and to me, there was like validity behind it. Even though they're clearly, to me, were better than the Packers, but it's fucking hard to go on the road and win. That game the other night was... the chances that this game is as good as that game, to me, feel slim to none. Like, that's probably going to be the highlight of Kyle's, you know, unless he wins a Super Bowl for like a couple years. Like, that was fucking pretty cool. But McVay's at home, guy. Having these home games, did you see the thing that went viral? I saw it on my timeline yesterday, I think, of Aaron Rodgers after he lost the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, and he's like, we need to get these games at Lambeau. And then they've had the games at Lambeau, and they've lost the last 2 years. But there was validity to what he was saying. Like, what he was saying, like, we need the disadvantage here in these games. This isn't the playoffs. Or, I mean, this isn't week 6 at Detroit or, you know, week 5 at even if you're playing good teams, right? Even if you're playing Seattle or New England or whatever. To me, the pressure is on Sean McVay. Like, listen, I think Kyle has not had the pressure on him the last 2 weeks. Once he won that Week 18 game, like you said, there's pressure once the game's going. Like, you don't want to lose. If they would have lost the Dallas game, somehow, it would have felt devastating. But going into that game, the pressure was on the Cowboys, and you felt it from kickoff. Same with the Packers a little bit once the game started playing out, and it was at first it was like, the Packers are free and lose, 7-0. But then when it's 7-0 at halftime, you're like, holy fuck, these guys, and we said it, they will get tight because the elephant in the room is fucking 12. What's he going to do if we lose? To me, it was more than just losing. It's like Aaron Rodgers, right? That, to me, and I would imagine all these Packer fans are like, God, what the fuck? And the moment they blocked the punt, it was like Matt LaFleur represented the entire place. They saw a ghost. Like, how would you not? It's a little different, especially with the home crowd, but the pressure is on Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. They're favored in this game for a reason.
The way they won last week was incredible, but they've now they blew the Niner game. They almost blew that game last week. I think in some ways it helped them to be on the road last week to kind of feel like they're at Tom Brady. I think that released a little pressure for them. If they'd been at home last week and almost blew it, I think it would have maybe felt a little tighter. You get to kind of play the underdog when you go on the road and play Tom Brady, even if we view you as like, you guys can't lose this game. You just went all in on Matthew Stafford.
You see what Odell said? He was like, yeah, I was getting nervous. They got the GOAT over there when they were coming back.
Did you see the photo somebody posted of Cooper Kupp and Tom Brady? It said it said the GOAT and Tom Brady. But yeah, you're right. You are so aware of the fact that you're playing Tom Brady. You are so aware of the fact that you're playing Tom Brady.
I know you were tweeting this, and a lot of people were saying this. our buddy Derek Papa, like, they don't know how to close games. Do they, or just the guy fumbled? Now, you could
No,
argue, why are they putting him in the game?
I said they don't know how to close games, but it was a follow-up to I don't think anybody knows how to close games. I think closing games is really hard.
Well, guy, if you're trying to run out the clock and your running back fumbles, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely part of the problem. But that's part of the problem is their running back fumbles. That's their running back. So, that's their running back.
They could have put in a different running back. Like, would Belichick have benched him after the one fumble? Maybe.
Also, you start throwing the ball and it's incomplete. Now we say the same thing about you. But this is what I said when the Niners almost lost at the end of the Dallas game. It's really hard to finish. Finishing games is the hardest part of the game. If you have
McDermott,
it's the hardest part. And Sean's like, if you had told me you got the lead with 13 seconds left, I'd go, I could walk away and let my kid coach the team. Our odds are pretty good.
He said that?
No. I'm saying that.
Oh, that's a pretty good line.
13 seconds. 13 seconds. So it's hard. So I was giving them a hard time, but I just think it's real. Not because I think they are flawed. I think everybody being up that big in a must-win game, you'd rather be up that big than not. But it is kind of complicated because you're going 100 miles an hour, and now you kind of try to dial it back, and all it takes is one or two plays from the other team because you can start doing the math really quick when it's like, oh, we're up 21. Woo! Niners have had games like this. And then you give up a score, and it's two scores, and then you go 3 and out, and it's only 4 minutes left in the third quarter. You go, holy shit, if they score right here, now it's a one-score game, and now all the pressure's on us again. So it happens really fast. It happens really, really fast. And I think that's what's weird about the Niners. They shouldn't be able to come back on you like that. They shouldn't because they don't have the explosive.
They're not built like that.
But they do make explosive plays. That's what Debo does and Kittle does. And I do think if the Niners get up, it just is going to be a real test for the Rams. Even if the Niners, if the game is kind of 7-0 halftime, whatever.
Last week, week 18 was a little bit of like they had 17-3 looked pretty good big on paper, but then you go, well, the Niners got the ball, and then they score that first drive. So it's a 1.1 possession game.
Yeah.
And then they forced a punt, and they scored again. Boom, it's tied. So that is the key of like where you get the ball. Because if I would have told you, well, they don't get the ball, the Rams do, and go up 24-3, the swing is a lot, right? When you get the ball, there was a 3 and out by the Niners there would have felt like, God, this game's over. But they scored. So all of a sudden, 17-3 looks like 17-10. That's just a normal NFL score. I think where the Rams really fucked up that first time, they're up 17-0. Jimmy throws that pick that just floats in the air, and they don't punch in another score. Even if they just get a field goal there, it would have felt insurmountable.
Niners dodge bullets, man.
Why? I text someone today and I said, I think the Niners are the only teams that can beat the Chiefs. Not because I think the Niners are better than the Chiefs, where I kind of felt that it was much more of a coin flip game 2 years ago, just because it feels like they're riding the football gods wave. Like, that's just that simple. Now, they got players that I think could make plays against the Chiefs, but the Chiefs would be, to me, a 5-point favorite. Like, that should be the line. Like, the line should not be 3. But I could see the Niners beating them just because of, like, this wave of the football gods they're riding. I've never seen anything like it, guy. Never. The Packer game and the Rams game.
Like the 9-7 Giants would probably have felt similar?
Well, I heard Bill Simmons compare this team to that team. And I do think there is some... I think both Giants teams felt like they rode a little bit of a wave. And what did they have? They had just great pass rushers. And when pass rushers can just make some chaos happen. Now, I'd say Eli, that version of Eli is better than this version of Jimmy. But Jimmy has a little bit of pulling shit out of his ass like Eli, it feels like, right?
I think what was...
I think Debo and Kittle are better than probably anything they had. They had Plaxico and Steve Smith and Manningham.
Not Josh Jacobs.
The tiptoe burglar, Riddick used to call him. Brandon Jacobs.
Brandon Jacobs. I think what's similar to me about those teams...
Ahmad Bradshaw actually was pretty good.
Well, they had, with a pass rush, the way Eli could play at times, they made some key plays, veteran coach. Kind of, they just...
Tough as shit, they were.
Tough. but I heard that Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks talking about this on their podcast. Like, there are regular season teams, and then there are teams that are built for the playoffs. And the Titans, and I think we knew this the whole time, stylistically, they're kind of a postseason team, but they're not a built for the playoffs team, not with Tannehill. They don't have enough else to elevate him, and maybe part of that is play calling, right? And obviously, A.J. Brown it turned out, even though he was a no-show for most of that game, all of a sudden, he almost flipped that game and won it for him.
I mean, their best player was coming off. He has plates at his foot.
It's fair. I don't think they're a post. I mean, they have postseason qualities, but I think Tannehill keeps them from being a postseason team. And maybe offensive coaching does. Like, the Niners do have some qualities that make them, when you look at their stars, like we were talking about this, when you say, okay, Niners have the football, let's list off the just top tier, all pro level stars on the field in that given moment in time. It's Debo, it's Kittle, it's Trent Williams, it's Aaron Donald, it's Jalen Ramsey. I mean, it's an impressive list of dudes that belong in the VIP.
You'd say three of those guys are first ballot Hall of Famers right now, right? Donald, Vaughn Miller, and Trent Williams are going to the Hall of Fame, first ballot.
Yeah.
And then you got, Jalen, Debo, Kittle, like they're building resumes,
right?
Headed that way. It's add up the money.
I say all that just to say when you could put them up against any playoff team and they look like they belong. They just look like they belong. And the pass rush is fantastic, and Eric Armstead, like all of these things. But I do think, look, as much as there is pressure on the Rams, let's say you're the Niners and you're up 14-7 at the end of the third quarter. There's a ton of pressure on you too.
Once the game happens.
There is a ton of pressure on you as well. If you're Jimmy, if you're Kyle, like, how do you call that game up a score? Well, knowing they can hit you at any moment.